So today I wanted to do the R in French, France French. So the standard France French and standard German, which is called Hochdeutsch or High German, they seem to pronounce R in the same way or very similarly. So I thought this could be like whether they are similar or not, you're going to find out. Probably would be a better idea to just do a video on French, then the next video is going to be about R in German, and then you can compare the two. Okay, so I'm going to represent R, the rhotic sound, underlyingly with this symbol as you see. So this is the idea of R in our head, and then once we pronounce it, depending on how we pronounce it, it's going to sound different. So far we have done videos about R in at least English, in which the typical pronunciation is this, but we also showed that in some dialects it could be the trill R. And then I did R in Persian. I showed that it could be the trill, it could be the flap, or it could be devoiced. So the R that I've put in between slashes is the phoneme, because it's the idea of R in our head. The way it actually is pronounced in any particular language would be the different allophones of that phoneme. And so far, if you look at language as a universal phenomenon, if you think of language as having universal grammar in the sense that we can write a grammar that would apply to language as a phenomenon and therefore to all languages of the world, then we can start a reasonable discussion of what are the allophones of the R phoneme across the languages of the world. We will be doing a video about R across languages. So today I'm going to look at the allophones of R in French. R sound in French is pronounced far back in the mouth. It's actually a uvular sound, which is a trill, but in certain contexts it can become the fricative version of itself, which is written upside down. So the French R becomes fricative in certain environments, but typically the main form is the uvular trill and is voiced.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Learn French with Alexa.
Bonjour, c'est Virginie.
Okay, bonjour. She's doing the trill R, the voiced uvular trill.
This is quite an annoying letter R in French. R.
He's really French, and he's struggling so much to pronounce the R the English way when he speaks English. He's shifting his tongue from the uvula to the alveolar.
Vous est-elle encore familière et aviez-vous déjà passé, puisque hier soir nous étions au Shrine, une soirée au Shrine dans un autre lieu de Lagos?
Alors, dire qu'elle m'est familière, ce serait beaucoup dire, parce que j'y suis pas revenu de manière régulière depuis plus de 15 ans.
Okay, familière. So he's using the feminine version. Again, the R. Okay, the word familiar in French is, in English it's familiar. It has two versions. So it's familier, and then we have familière. So this word has two forms. In the masculine form, the R is not pronounced, but here it is pronounced. So this can tell us something interesting about French as well. Here, although you write the R, but you don't pronounce it in other words, it becomes nothing. R in French is sometimes written, but is not pronounced. So that happens at the end of the word in similar environments when it's not followed by a vowel. Or it could actually be a word like an infinitive. For example, to pass would be passer. Again here, as you see, this R is not pronounced, it's pronounced passer.
Vous est-elle encore familière et aviez-vous déjà passé, puisque hier soir nous étions au Shrine, une soirée au Shrine dans un autre lieu de Lagos?
Alors, dire qu'elle m'est familière, ce serait beaucoup dire, parce que j'y suis pas revenu de manière régulière depuis plus de 15 ans.
So if you want to successfully pronounce the R, the voice uvular trill, right? So the French R is a uvular sound. Basically, if you look at the sagittal section, the uvula is the farthest point back in the mouth. So it's as far back as you can go in the mouth and still be in the mouth, but that's just the end of the mouth, right? If you go any farther, you will get to the pharynx. So if you look at the consonant chart, the part that is uvular, it's the farthest point in the mouth where you can pronounce a sound in your mouth. If you go further back in the consonant chart, you will enter the pharynx, and if you go further down, you will produce glottal sounds. So glottal is the adjective for glottis, and it refers to the space between your two vocal folds. But the French sound R is so far back in the mouth, some people might just say, oh, this is a sound in your throat, which is, technically speaking, is not accurate because it's at the edge of your throat.
You'll see it's not that difficult to pronounce. It's a sound made in the throat.
Ici, here. Ra, ro, ri.
So because of this, one particular analogy for this sound is, oh, it sounds like gargling water in your throat. In your mouth, actually. You don't gargle water in your throat because otherwise you would swallow it, right? You block it with the end of your mouth, which is the uvula.
Do you know how to gargle? Take a glass of water, like this one. And just gargle. Easy, right?
Easy, c'est facile.
Now I have to give examples of intervocalic R in French and show how it may be become fricative. When the R is intervocalic, it might turn into this one, which is the fricative version of it. Basically, what happens is it becomes fricative, and if a sound is fricative, you can continuously pronounce it. Parachute.
Parachute. Parachute.
And then tarama.
Tarama. Tarama.
In the case of tarabuste, you have tara, which is this one, and then you have the other R, which is silent.
Tarabuste. Tarabuste.
Parachever.
Parachever. Parachever.
We figured out so far the three allophones of R in French are the voiced uvular trill and the voiced uvular fricative and the empty, the null symbol, nothing. So when you say nothing, it means they're written but they're not pronounced. So are these the only allophones of R in French? Let's do something else. French in Africa. We have a lot of countries in Africa which are former French colonies and they speak French. So the French spoken in Africa may sound slightly different. If you listen to people in Africa speaking French, you will notice another allophone for the sound R. Okay, for example here, can you tell me if you notice that?
Vous évoquez deux noms sur 2 ou 3 dizaines. Il n'y a pas de particularisme à faire sur les noms que vous évoquez. Dans tous les cas, personne ne se retrouve invité à répondre.
They pronounce the trill, R, pro. So here you have the word sura, so with the R being pronounced as a trill. But which trill R? I don't mean the uvular trill, I mean the alveolar trill, which is common. We covered it in Persian, it's common in Spanish, Italian. So that's a kind of R which you may not hear in French, but it is very likely that you may hear it in the varieties of French spoken in Africa.
Vous évoquez deux noms sur 2 ou 3 dizaines. Il n'y a pas de particularisme à faire sur les noms que vous évoquez. Dans tous les cas, personne ne se retrouve invité à répondre.
Again, he says sura. The word trouve is a conjugated form of trouver, which means to find. and then particularisme. Now in this video, something very interesting is happening because we have a gentleman speaking French. He starts using the uvular R, and then when he gets more emotional or immersed in the topic, not in the form, he shifts into alveolar trill. So there's a range in which he does the uvular.
C'était un sentiment de joie, de fierté et pour la persévérance, la confiance en la sincérité de la conviction.
Then he pronounces this, persévérance. Okay, now he shifts into alveolar trill.
Que mes émissions serviraient de propagande pour un projet politique dont Boubou Cissé serait le bénéficiaire et l'instigateur. Colère. Pas pour m'avoir privé de ma liberté, mais pour avoir détourné le service.
Servire. Pour, and then projet. You see liberté. So we have the trill, the voiced alveolar trill version as well. In this video, what we did was introduce the phoneme R in French and then try to show what allophones this phoneme has in French. Keep gargling.